Ever get this feeling like, whoa, are we living in the future already? Our phones are finishing our sentences, social media is like reading our minds.
It's all thanks to AI, right?
AI, exactly. And it's not just our phones, it's everywhere you look these days. But here's the thing.
With great power.
Comes great responsibility. You knew I was going to say that, didn't you?
Had a feeling.
But seriously, with AI becoming so powerful, it's bringing up some seriously big questions. And that's what we're diving into today.
We're talking about how AI is going to completely reshape everything.
Exactly. The job market, how fair these algorithms really are, the whole data privacy
We
thing.
might even have to touch on those killer robots everyone's worried about.
No, seriously, we're going there. But first up, let's talk jobs. We dug into this McKinsey study, and let me tell you, the numbers are kind of mind-blowing. They're predicting that by 2030, automation could, get this, impact up to 800 million jobs worldwide.
It's hard to even wrap your head around a number that big.
Right. To put it into perspective, that's like everyone in Germany, France, and the UK combined all figuring out their next career move at the same time.
Wow.
Makes you think, huh? Like, how do we as a society adapt to a world where robots are doing more and more of the work? And it's not just like factory jobs or whatever. This McKinsey study, they're saying AI could change the game for lawyers, accountants,
Even doctors.
doctors. Yeah, we're talking a massive shift in like what skills you actually need to get ahead in this new world.
It's changing so fast, too.
Way faster than ever before. Okay, so think about Amazon, right? They've got robots zooming around their warehouses, making things crazy efficient. But then it makes you wonder.
What happens to the people who used to do those jobs?
Exactly. How do we make sure that all this increased productivity isn't coming at the cost of, people's livelihoods?
It's a question that goes back a long way, actually. I mean, think about the Industrial Revolution. That was a huge shift in how we worked, too. Every time technology leaps forward, there's this period of figuring things out.
So this is like the new industrial revolution.
In a way, yeah. But it's happening so much faster this time, on a global scale. And the thing about AI is, it's not always about replacing humans completely. Sometimes it's more about working together.
Okay, interesting. So are you saying we shouldn't be worried about robots taking our jobs?
It's more nuanced than that. It's not about being afraid of the technology. It's about figuring out how we adapt and thrive alongside it.
So what, we all need to learn to code or something?
It's not just about coding. It's about education in general, making sure people have the skills to work with AI, not compete against it. And it's about our social safety nets, too. We need to make sure people are supported if their jobs do become automated.
That's a really good point. It's not about fearing the robots, it's about making sure no one gets left behind in all this change.
Exactly. A rising tide should lift all boats, as they say.
Love that. Okay, so let's say we figure out this whole job displacement thing and we're all like happily working side by side with our AI coworkers. How can we be sure those systems are actually treating us fairly? Like making decisions that aren't biased or discriminatory. That brings us to our next big question.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm.
How do you teach fairness to an algorithm?
It's kind of like, that saying, you are what you eat. But for algorithms, it's more like you are what you're fed in terms of data, right?
Exactly. Feed them biased data and, well, you're going to get biased outcomes.
So how do we even begin to unpack that? It's not like we can just magically erase, centuries of bias from our data sets overnight.
It's definitely not a quick fix, that's for sure. But it's not hopeless either. One thing we need is a lot more transparency.
Transparency, like with these tech companies.
Yeah, exactly. How are these AI systems actually being built? What data are they using? What are the potential, blind spots in their algorithms? Shining a light on that whole process, it can help us see biases we might not even realize are there.
It's like they say, sunlight's the best disinfectant, right?
Exactly. The more transparency we have, the less likely bias is to just hide in the shadows.
Makes sense. So more transparency, that's a good start. What else can we do?
Well, we also need more diversity in the teams that are actually developing these technologies.
Oh, that's a good point.
Different perspectives, different backgrounds, they all bring something important to the table. And that includes catching and correcting for bias.
It's like if everyone building these AI systems looks the same, thinks the same, comes from the same background.
Then, yeah, they're going to miss things. They won't even see the biases baked into their assumptions.
Exactly. You need that diversity of thought to build AI that actually works for everyone. But even with the best intentions, even with more transparency and more diversity, things can still go wrong.
Oh, absolutely. We've already seen it happen. Facial recognition systems misidentifying people, algorithms messing up loan applications.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about it. So Do we need more rules, regulations?
Definitely need some guardrails, yeah. Ethical frameworks, clear guidelines for how AI is developed and used with a real focus on fairness, accountability.
Accountability,
Yeah,
so that if something does go wrong, we know who's responsible.
exactly. And this isn't just on the tech companies themselves. It's governments, it's researchers, it's even everyday people. All of us coming together to have these conversations, these sometimes really tough conversations about what kind of future we want to build with this technology.
It's a huge responsibility, but it's also a huge opportunity, right?
Absolutely. We have the chance to do things differently, to build AI that helps create a more just and equitable world.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked a lot about jobs, about fairness, about bias and algorithms, but there's another big piece of the AI puzzle that we need to talk about, and that's data privacy. Our digital footprints are getting bigger every single day, and guess what? AI thrives on that data.
It's like the fuel that powers the whole thing.
Exactly. Which makes you wonder, how much of our lives are we actually willing to share in exchange for, like, a more personalized experience on social media or, whatever the latest cool AI gadget is?
It's a tough question because on the one hand, all those personalized recommendations, the convenience, it's pretty great,
Yeah.
but it comes at a cost. And that cost is our data.
It's like that classic deal with the devil. We get all this cool stuff, but we have to give up a little piece of ourselves in the process.
Yeah. And finding that balance between the benefits of AI and protecting our fundamental right to privacy, that's going to be one of the defining challenges of, well, probably our lifetimes.
So what can we do about it as, regular people just trying to navigate this increasingly complicated digital world?
Well, you can't just opt out entirely, right? We're all part of the system now.
Unless we move off the grid.
Haha, true. But for most of us, it's about being more aware. Be mindful of the data you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. Do your research. Support companies that actually care about privacy.
Vote with our wallets.
Exactly. And use your voice. Advocate for stronger privacy regulations that give people more control over their own data.
So be informed, be selective, and speak up.
I like it. Okay, speaking of accountability, remember those killer robots we mentioned earlier? Time to talk about those killer robots. You know the ones.
Yeah, those always seem to pop up in these conversations, don't they?
It's like we can't talk about AI without at least mentioning the possibility of things going, well, little Terminator on us.
I mean, it's not entirely science fiction anymore, is it? Autonomous weapons systems, AI making life or death decisions. It's something a lot of very smart people are genuinely concerned about.
And for good reason. I mean, just think about it. How do you program a machine to understand all the nuances of, like, actual warfare, the value of human life, the ethical dilemmas, stuff that even people struggle with, right?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can you really code morality? Teach a machine to understand something as complex as the rules of war. And even if you could, how do you know it'll always follow those rules?
Exactly. And then there's the issue of accountability. Like, if something goes wrong, if an AI-controlled weapon harms civilians, who's to blame? The programmer, the manufacturer, the government that deployed it.
It's a bit of a tangled web, isn't it?
It is, and it's something we really need to figure out before these systems become, widespread. Because once that genie's out of the bottle.
It's kind of hard to stuff it back in.
Exactly.
It all comes back to something we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
For all the talk of AI being, like, objective and unbiased, it's still a product of the humans who created it, right?
100%.
Mhm.
The biases, the values, even the flaws, they all get baked in, which is why it's so important to have those ethical conversations at every single stage of the development process.
So it's not enough to just build cool tech. We have to be really intentional about how we build it and why.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking not just about what AI can do, but what it should do. What kind of future do we want to create with this technology?
Because the future's not some, like, fixed destination, right? It's something we're all actively building. One line of code, one decision at a time.
I like that. It's about recognizing that we have agency, we have...
What gives you hope? When you look at the future of AI, what makes you optimistic?
What gives me hope is that we're having this conversation in the first place. People are starting to ask the tough questions, demanding more transparency, pushing for ethical guidelines.
We're not just blindly marveling at the shiny new tech anymore. We're thinking about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's how it should be. The future AI isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we have a say in.
We're not just along for the ride. We're the ones holding the map, right? I like it. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, haven't we? From killer robots to not so killer robots.
And
Yeah.
everything in between.
But hopefully we've given everyone listening a lot to think about. Because at the end of the day, the future of AI, it's not some predetermined outcome, it's a choice.
And it's a choice that we all have a responsibility to make.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for coming along with us as we explored this, let's just say, very interesting topic. Until next time.